从美国东部时间3月31日晚到4月1日晚，美国新泽西州民主党籍联邦参议员科里布克在参议院发表了一个持续时间超过25个小时的马拉松式演讲，以此来表达民主党人对美国总统特朗普一系列政策的抵制。这打破了已故国会参议员斯特罗姆瑟蒙德保持的24时18分的参议院最长演讲记录。当时他演说的话题是关于抵制1957年民权法的通过，为种族隔离而辩护。美联社4月2日评价称，这是一次非凡的耐力展示。民主党人试图向他们沮丧的支持者表明，他们正在尽一切可能对抗特朗普的议程。美国政客新闻网指出，布克的马拉松式演讲正值参议院共和党人计划进一步推进特朗普大而美丽的法案之时，该法案将把减税与边境、能源和国防政策合并。美国有线电视新闻网 CNN 4月1日称，虽然布克的演讲不是一个在议会中为拖延表决而进行的冗长演说，只是象征性谴责，但该演讲事实上推迟了参议院的立法议程。在他的讲话中，布克警告美国正处于危机之中。他对马斯克在特朗普指示下领导的改革联邦政府的努力进行了数小时的抱怨，还列举了特朗普行政命令的影响，重点抨击了医疗保健、教育、移民和国家安全等政府议程。布克还阅读了一些选民来信，称一位作家对特朗普吞并格陵兰岛和加拿大的言论以及迫在眉睫的宪法危机感到震惊。布克呼吁美国人组成广泛的联盟站出来对抗特朗普政府，为了不让主持会议的官员继续处理参议院事务，民主党人不能让布克休息、坐下或者使用洗手间，于是他们通过向布克提问的方式让他短暂休息。提问后，布克迅速回答，以行动表示他不会停止演讲。他讲台前的桌子上只放着2杯水。布克是新泽西州纽瓦克的前市长，于2013年加入参议院。在2020年竞选总统时，他提出了以团结和政治治愈为中心的信息，但未能吸引到大多数选民。
My strategy was to stop eating. I think I stopped eating on Friday, and then to stop drinking the night before I started on Monday. And that had its benefits and it had its really downsides. And so instead of fighting or figuring out how to go to the bathroom, I ended up, I think, really unfortunately dehydrating myself. And I'm a former athlete, so I know when you get dehydrated, you get a lot of cramps. That was the biggest thing I was fighting, was that different muscle groups were starting to really cramp up. You know, and you guys have written about and talked about it. There's a lot of people out there who are asking Democrats to do more and to take risks and do things differently. This seemed like the right thing to do, and from what my staff is telling me, a lot of people watched, and so we'll see what it is. I just think a lot of us have to do a lot more, including myself.
这场演讲不仅考验了身体极限，也展现了坚定的政治立场和公民责任感。当布克进入抗议的最后几个小时的时候，他的声音明显嘶哑，不时停下来，用一块白手帕擦擦额头。包括众议院少数党领袖哈基姆·杰弗里斯在内的一大批众议院民主党人也在参议院前停下来聆听布克的演讲。本期视频，我们带你回到那个夜晚，通过几个片段，一起听听布克是怎么用一场演讲，把自己的愤怒、焦虑和坚持，全都摆在国会的讲台上的。
My friend, Madam President, I yield the floor.
The senator from New Jersey.
I am really grateful, Mr. President. I'm grateful you're in the chair, and I'm grateful to be able to rise right now and speak. I want to say at the top that I have a tremendous love for this institution, and a lot of that's born from the people that are here, from the pages I get to know in every class to the folks that work the doors, the clerks, the parliamentarians. This is a special place, and a lot of the people who are known here are not the ones that really keep this place functioning.
I come in here days and I have good moods or bad moods, but always find myself lifted when I walk onto this floor. It's a sacred civic space. It is extraordinary, and I'm always aware of the weight of history when I walk in here, no matter good day, bad day, whether I'm in a rush or not. When I touch the Senate floor, I feel something really magnificent. I don't think that our founders would have ever imagined a body like this, with black people on both sides of the aisle, with women serving here, with folks from many different backgrounds. We are, in many ways, doing what this Senate, what the founders had envisioned, which was this idea of every generation making this a more perfect union. But there have been times in this journey where our union was in crisis and was in peril. There have been times in this great American journey over our 250 years where so many heroes had to emerge, people that I've come to revere, like Joshua Chamberlain from Maine, who played such a pivotal role in the Battle of Gettysburg. What a noble soul he was. He would later go on to be the governor of his state and go on to great things, but his heroism lay that in a time of crisis, he stood up. I know there are veterans in this body, and I admire them so much, who have answered that call to serve our country and put their lives at sacrifice. There are people that I admire that are heroes of mine that were suffragists who were people who fought as abolitionists. There are people more recently that I've come to lionize and admire because they did so much for this country, not with titles, not with high rank or positions, but folks who, when this country was facing crossroads, was facing crises, they stood up, they spoke up. One of my greatest heroes of life was a man I got to serve with named John Lewis. And I served with him in this body, and every opportunity I had, I would ask him about the times when he was just a 20-something. He was the youngest person who was a featured speaker on the March on Washington. He was called the bravest man in the civil rights movement because he kept putting himself in harm's way to dramatize, to let folks know, to bring attention to the injustices in this world, and to say very strongly that this, what is going on in our country, is not normal, that this going on in our country is wrong. I stand on this floor as a United States Senator, but I revere people who never stood on this floor, people who, before they even got to their 30s and 40s and 50s in life, were out there as great patriots fighting for this nation. I rise today in an unusual manner, and I want to be clear and explain that, but I just want to tell you what John Lewis said. It's a quote so many people know. And he really spoke not to members of the Senate or the Congress. He was really speaking to Americans. He said, "Get in good trouble, necessary trouble. Help redeem the soul of America." John Lewis died in 2020, in July, at a time that it was Donald Trump's first term in office. And he did what Congress people did, but he also did some really extraordinary things to fight for health care. My friend Chris Murphy knows about that. He was there when John Lewis did a open Facebook chats, not in this chamber or in the House chamber. He sat on the steps and people were there. I remember when he did a sit-in. They had to shut the cameras off on him. He got in good trouble on the House side, too. And so I start tonight thinking about him. I've been thinking about him a lot during these last 71 days. Get in good trouble, necessary trouble, help redeem the soul of America, and had to ask myself, if he's my hero, how am I living up to his words? I think Democrats and Republicans have made a lot of mistakes. No side has a monopoly on the truth. No side has been perfect servants of this country. But what's happened in the last 71 days is a patent demonstration of a time where John Lewis's call to everyone has, I think, become more urgent and more pressing. And if I think it's a call for our country, I have to ask myself how I'm living these words. So tonight, I rise with the intention of getting in some good trouble. I rise with the intention of disrupting the normal business of the United States Senate for as long as I am physically able. I rise tonight because I believe sincerely that our country is in crisis. And I believe that not in a partisan sense, because so many of the people that have been reaching out to my office in pain, in fear, having their lives upended, so many of them identify themselves as Republicans. Indeed, conversations from in this body to in this building to across my state and recently in a travel across the country, Republicans as well as Democrats are talking to me about what they feel is a sense of dread about a growing crisis, or what they point to about what is going wrong, that bedrock commitments in our country that both sides rely on, that people from all backgrounds rely on, those bedrock commitments are being broken. Unnecessary hardships are being borne by Americans of all backgrounds. And institutions which are special in America, which are precious, which are unique in our country, are being recklessly, and I would say even unconstitutionally affected, attacked, even shattered. In just 71 days, the President of the United States has inflicted so much harm on Americans' safety, financial stability, the core foundations of our democracy, and even our aspirations as a people for, from our highest offices, a sense of common decency. These are not normal times in America. And they should not be treated as such. John Lewis, so many heroes before us, would say that this is the time to stand up, to speak up. This is the time to get in some good trouble, to get into necessary trouble. I can't allow this body to continue without doing something different, speaking out. The threats to American people and American democracy are grave and urgent, and we all must do more. We all must do more against them. But those 10 words, if it is to be, it is up to me. All of us have to think of those 10 words, 10 two-letter words. If it is to be, if it is up to me, because I believe generations from now will look back at this moment and have a single question. Where were you? Where were you when our country was in crisis and when American people were asking for help? Help me. Help me. Did we speak up? When 73 million American seniors who rely on Social Security were to have that promise mocked, attacked, and then to have the services undermined, to be told that there will be no one there to answer if you call for help. When our seniors became afraid and worried and panicked because of the menacing words of their president, of the most wealthy person in the world, of cabinet secretaries, did we speak up? When the American economy in 71 days has been upended, when prices at the grocery store were skyrocketing and the stock market was plunging, when pension funds, 401ks were going down, when Americans were hurting and looking up, where the resounding answer to this question was no. Are you better off economically than you were 71 days ago? Where were you? Did you speak up? At a time when the President of the United States was launching trade wars against our most close allies, when he was firing regulators who investigate America's biggest banks and biggest corporations and stop them from taking advantage of the little guy or the little gal or my grandmother or your grandfather, dismantling the agency that protects consumers from fraud, that the only one whose sole purpose is to look out for them. Did you speak up when the President of the United States, in a way that is so crass and craven, peddled his own meme coin and made millions upon millions upon millions of dollars for his own bank account at a time so many are struggling economically? Did you speak up when the President of the United States did what amounts to a car commercial for the richest man in the world right in front of America's house, the White House, when the President tried to take health care away? Where were you? Did you speak up? Threatening a program called Medicaid helps people with disabilities, helps expectant mothers, helps millions upon millions of Americans. And why? Why? As a part of a larger plan to pay for tax cuts for the wealthiest amongst us who've done the best over the last 20 years, for billionaires. It seems so close to the president that they sat right on the dais at his inauguration and sit in his cabinet meetings at the White House. Did you speak up when he gutted public education, slashed funds for pediatric cancer research, fired thousands of veterans who risked their lives for their country, when he abandoned our allies and our international commitments at a time when floods, fires, and hurricanes and droughts are devastating communities across this country, when countries all around the world are banding together to do something, and he turned his back? Did you speak up when outbreaks of dangerous infectious diseases are still a global threat, but yet we have stopped engaging in the efforts necessary to meet those threats? Where were you when the American press was being censored, when international students were being disappeared from American streets without due process, when American universities were being intimidated into silence, challenging that fundamental idea of freedom of thought, freedom of expression, when the law firms that represent clients that may not be favored were attacked and attacked and attacked? Where were you? Did you speak up when they came for those firms? Or what about when the people who attacked the police officers, who defended this building and American democracy on January 6th, who just outside those doors put their lives on the line for us, and many of them would later die? Where were you when the president pardoned them, celebrated them, and even talked of giving them money, the people who savagely beat American police officers? Did you speak up when Americans from across the country were all speaking up? More and more voices in this country speaking up, saying this is not right, this is un-American, this is not who we are, this is not America. Did you speak up? And so I rise tonight because I believe to be about what is normal right now, when so much abnormal is happening, is unacceptable. I rise tonight because silence at this moment of national crisis would be a betrayal of some of the greatest heroes of our nation, because at stake in this moment is nothing less than everything that we brag about, that we talk about, that makes us special. At stake right now are some of our most basic American principles that so many Americans understand are worth fighting for, worth standing for, worth speaking up for. Like if you work hard your entire life and pay into Social Security, it should be there for you when you retire, and you should not have to question if those paychecks will arrive, and the government should strive to improve service to you, not brag about cutting it. Basic American principles like if you serve your nation in the military, if you put your life in danger abroad, you will be respected and taken care of. You will be cherished and honored and not forced to worry that the federal employees who provide you with care, many of whom are veterans themselves, will be fired, or the benefits that you rely on will be denied, or that your health care needs won't be met. Basic American principles like your child will have access to a high-quality public education, that every child has a unique genius. Even our children, beautiful children with special needs, they have genius. And that our children can go to school and parents and teachers know that they will be safe there. At stake now are those basic American principles that the people you elect to serve you in government will represent you and not try to make themselves richer, not run some scam. And call you a sucker. These basic ideals of our nation, that everyone's rights will be equally protected and everyone will be held accountable under the law. Right now, all of this, things that make our country different, are under attack. Our constituents are asking us to acknowledge this. Everywhere I travel now, I hear from Republicans and independents and Democrats who are afraid, who are worried, who are angry. And I think about John Lewis, who taught me that fear is not something to be shunned. It's almost a signpost that you're headed in the right direction. It is something that is a necessary precondition. You cannot have great fear without great courage. John Lewis would tell us that this is a time for great courage. He would tell us that anger is a fuel. It can consume you, debilitate you, or it could fuel you to put yourself in service of others. So tonight I rise in an unusual way. I rise with the intention to stand here until I can stand no longer, until I'm physically unable to stand anymore. I'm going to speak up. I'm going to try to cause some good trouble in this body I respect so much. I'm going to try to cause what I believe is necessary trouble. I'm going to try to honor the legacy that I know I've inherited as an American, the legacy I think about when I come to this floor and feel sometimes overwhelmed with all the sacrifice and struggle that had to get me here. The first area I want to talk about is Medicaid, Medicare, and healthcare, as my constituents spoke to. I don't need to tell anyone the importance of healthcare to humanity. Without our health, we would not be able to do anything else. We would not be able to provide for our families, spend time with our loved ones, do all of the things that make life worth living. That's why I'm going to stand here and explain to people what's going on and how our healthcare programs are at risk and being undermined. The Trump administration and Republicans in Congress are right now discussing how to cut these programs in a way of putting those savings either into tax cuts for the rich. I say either because they're going to be putting them in the tax cuts for the rich, but those tax cuts, as we know, are still going to blow massive trillion-dollar holes in our deficits. They are trying to gut Medicaid and Medicare programs on which nearly a third of our country rely, all to pay for those tax cuts to billionaires and corporations. They're also dismantling the very institutions meant to safeguard our nation's health and well-being. And this is not the first time. They tried this before during Trump's first administration when he unsuccessfully tried to repeal the Affordable Care Act and cut Medicaid despite its popularity across the nation, across the political aisle. He was going after something that wasn't left or right, that Americans were saying in a chorus of conviction that this is about right or wrong. It is wrong to take away health care from millions of people. President Trump is causing an unprecedented amount of chaos, instability, and harm for farmers. Farmers already deal with so much uncertainty from prices, weather, pests, and more. They should not have to deal with uncertainty that our government won't follow through, as you said, on contracts. On contracts. I've had farmers from New Jersey to Texas coming to my office about this president freezing contracts that we approved in a bipartisan manner, putting them in financial crisis. One of the first things that Trump and Musk did is freeze thousands of contracts and agreements that have been already made with our farmers. Farmers applied to grant programs and were selected on their merits. They made legally binding contracts, yet starting in late January, farmers found themselves not getting reimbursed, contract freezes. This is one of the ways Trump and Musk are causing havoc. Program cuts. They've eliminated programs, as you said, that support local food systems, including those that connect farmers with food banks and schools and promote regenerative practices. It's stunning. The USDA destabilization, Trump and Musk have laid off USDA employees, closed USDA offices, hindering the agency's ability to provide essential services to farmers. Tariff policies. Trump's tariff policies implemented without consultation with or support from farmers will increase farmer costs and consumer food prices. And finally, general chaos, which seems to be something, as you're pointing out, that they're very good at. Farmers already deal with so much uncertainty from prices, weather, pests, and more. They should not have to deal with uncertainty from Donald Trump's administration that will undermine everything that they do. Environmental protections and how this country is becoming less safe for people with emphysema or with asthma. Because Donald Trump is rolling back common sense environmental protections, threatening our children's future and hurting our nation's economy. Energy costs in America are continuing to rise, making it harder and harder for working families to pay their bills. This administration is canceling projects that would create more jobs for Americans and lower energy prices. He claims he supports an all-of-the-above strategy, but that's clearly not what we're seeing, and there's too much silence about it. All Americans, regardless of where you're born, we deserve safe drinking water, clean air, and an equal opportunity for a healthy and fulfilling life. President Trump promised America the cleanest air and the cleanest water, but on entering office, he immediately instructed the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, to cut a long list of common sense environmental protections. This administration is rolling back efforts to reduce emissions from power plants. He's letting polluters pollute our air more. That affects the health of Americans. It drives up the aggravating the rates of asthma and emphysema, weakening rules that keep our rivers and our water systems clean as well. The American people alone, our approach to foreign policy practiced by the president, what the president has done is left our allies feeling abandoned, feeling degraded and insulted. He's left our adversaries feeling emboldened and has done things that has hurt our national security, that has made Americans less safe. In the short time President Trump has been in office for his second term, Americans have already been put in harm's way because of the reckless approach of the administration. It all begins, in fact, with his extremely poor judgment. This administration has prioritized the obsequiousness to Donald Trump over the expertise when it comes to some of the most important national security jobs, and it has sidelined dedicated professionals who've devoted their lives to keeping our country safe. This administration has also demonstrated an inability to distinguish between America's adversaries and America's allies. and a disturbing failure to understand how America's partnerships and investments abroad protect and benefit communities here. I'm reminded of General Mattis to say, if you're cutting things like the USAID or the State Department, buy me more bullets. And so I've tried over the last 25 hours and 1 minute to center the conversation back on what will we do of good conscience. People who are saying, I served this country, I risked my life, shouldn't be able to keep my job. People who are saying, this country once made itself the envy of the world because we invested in high-quality education for every child. I don't like what's going on at the end of the Department of Education. People who are saying, I worked harder than I ever have, but the prices on everything in my life are getting higher. People who are saying that the America I learned about in school, the one where people's rights are protected, the people are saying that why are we yet again going through another healthcare battle that threatens millions of people? The people are saying that I'm worried about the financial security and the future of my country, the voices of folks. And so I end by saying simply this. Where I started was John Lewis. I don't know how to solve this. I don't know how to stop us from going down this road. Chuck Schumer's now told me that they're greasing the skids to do these things. I'm sorry. But I know who does have the power. The people of the United States of America. The power of the people is greater than the people in power. It is time to heed the words of the man I began this whole thing with, John Lewis. I beg folks to take his example of his early days where he made himself determined to show his love for his country at a time the country didn't love him, to love this country so much, to be such a patriot that he endured beatings savagely on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, at lunch counters, on freedom rides. He said he had to do something. He would not normalize a moment like this. He would not just go along with business as usual. He wouldn't know how to solve it. But there's one thing that he would do that I hope we all can do that I think I did a little bit of tonight. He said for us to go out and cause some good trouble, necessary trouble, to redeem the soul of our nation. I want you to redeem the dream. Let's be bold in America, not demean and degrade Americans, not divide us against each other. Let's be bolder in America with a vision that inspires, with hope that starts with the people of the United States of America. That's how this country started. We, the people. Let's get back to the ideals that others are threatening. Let's get back to our founding documents, that those imperfect geniuses had some very special words at the end of the Declaration of Independence. Was one of the greatest in all of humanity declarations of interdependence. When our founder said we must mutually pledge to each other, our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. We need that now from all Americans. This is a moral moment. It's not left or right, it's right or wrong. Let's get in good trouble. My friend, Madam President, I yield the floor. Madam President, thank you to the pages, thank you to the parliamentarian staff, thank you to the clerks, thank you to the doorkeepers. There are so many people that make this place special. I kept you up all night, kept you up 24 hours. I just want to say thank you. Thank you, everybody.